All new episodes of Game Graveyard. Weekdays on RatedEm.
Nowadays, when you hear the term cheating in reference to video games, you think of things like wall hacks, aimbots, and other frustrating third-party software used to get an advantage in online video games. But for a good point in time, cheating in video games was actually thought of as a really cool thing. It was idolized as you getting one above the computer program and asserting your dominance as its human superior. Using cheats in video games was oftentimes fun and silly, or again, displayed in a badass light. All the way from the early days of video games up until the late 2000s, players were encouraged to bend a video game to their will through things like cheat codes or cheat devices. But what happened? Why do we make the shift from cheats being thought of as cool to thought of as total loser behavior? And why is the act of cheating in single-player games looked down upon today when it was once promoted amongst the community? In today's episode of The Spot, we're taking a look at the history of video game cheats, how they evolved over the years, and where it all went wrong. Now, I actually had some difficulty finding the origins of cheats in video games. I was originally going to start by talking about video games released on the Atari 2600, but a lot of the cheats are just tips and tricks worthy, or they're sequences of actions and button presses, but they just reveal the names of those who worked on the game. I'd classify those as Easter eggs, which is a whole different topic for a whole different video. A lot of people would think that the Konami code is the first cheat code in video games, but this is actually not true. A game called Manic Miner for the ZX Spectrum has a code in it that predates the Konami code by 6 years. Entering 6031769 into the game would open up what is referred to as cheat mode, which allows the player to pick any level they want to play. Following that would be, yes, the Konami code in 1986. Gradius released in arcades in 1985 and followed a familiar practice that many other arcade games exercised, that being, the game was super difficult so that it could eat up quarters. In 1986, Gradius would be released on the NES and included a hidden button sequence that granted all power-ups and upgrades right from the get-go to make the game easier. That code is the notorious Konami code, which is, and say it with me now, up, down, left, right, B, start. If I didn't bring up the Konami code in a video about video game cheats, I think I would have been crucified. The Konami code would return in Contra, also released on the NES, and granted both players 30 additional lives, making the game much easier. This is the game that popularized it, but Gradius is the one that invented it. Many other games on the NES had cheat codes after their popularization by Konami, but a lot of games had pseudo cheat codes regarding password functionality. Due to games on the NES not having save functions, a common workaround that devs did was to have a password system. You reach a certain point in the game, or you quit the game, and it gives you a password based on your current progress. Next time you boot the game up, entering this password will put you right where you last left off. Essentially what's happening is the game is taking various bits of information, for example, the player's on level 2 and has an upgraded sword, and translating it into single characters that the game can then retranslate into game data when the code is entered. This means that inputting specific passwords can yield specific results. The most famous of this scenario being the Justin Bailey code from Metroid on the NES. Inputting Justin Bailey on the password screen of Metroid puts Samus in a pink suit without her iconic armor and gives the player a bunch of goodies very early on into the game. A lot of people figured that because it's a readable name, this was an intentional reference to somebody, a game developer, or someone who worked on translating the game. Problem is, there is nobody who worked on the game named Justin Bailey. Justin Bailey just happens to be the correct sequence of characters that have to be put into the password screen to put Samus in a pink suit and give the player a bunch of upgrades before they're supposed to get them. So my point is, if you choose to consider these instances cheat codes, then a lot of games on the NES had cheat codes, but if not, that number shrinks vastly. With the origin of cheat codes out of the way, I want to spend the next part of this video discussing some of my favorite cheat codes in games, or ones that I think are the most notable. In my opinion, the game that is most notable for cheat codes is the Grand Theft Auto series. Inputting cheats into this game can grant the player weapons, summon vehicles, they can raise or lower your wanted level, all sorts of stuff. I think a lot of people's memories with the GTA series are of them inputting a bunch of cheats and just wreaking havoc across the city. And honestly, I think there are people out there who own a GTA game and have made zero progress in the main story because they only play with cheats. I don't blame them, because what other game lets you have access to a bunch of weapons and go on a murder spree? Minecraft is my runner-up for a game where playing with cheats is likely a core memory for some people. Cheats in Minecraft are done with the game's built-in console commands, which originally started out as a mod, but eventually were added into the game. I'm talking about /give, /gamerule, /summon. I think anyone of my age demographic has these commands and the proper syntax of how to utilize them, etched into the ripples of their brain. Okay, I'm not trying to intentionally rank them, but The Sims is probably my third place pick for a game where playing with cheats is a core memory. Entering Rosebud into the command console would grant you $1,000, but entering Motherlode would grant you $50,000. I think in The Sims 4 you can just enter money and then whatever amount you want, but I remember spamming Motherlode as a kid. One that might be a core memory for some older folks is the blood code for Mortal Kombat on the Sega Genesis. The blood and gore in the arcade version is what put the game on the map, but when it came time to release Mortal Kombat for home consoles, it unfortunately had to be removed in order to get put on store shelves. Except on the Genesis. The game boots up to a screen that literally hints at it, talking about how the word code has many different definitions. Very cryptic. Inputting ABACABB on this screen will restore the game's iconic blood and gore. I actually brought this up in an old RatedEm episode where I talked about Mortal Kombat on the Genesis. Ew, oh my god, get that ugly bastard off the screen. God, I was an ugly teenager. I am so sorry you all had to see that. I was debating mentioning this one as it is more of an Easter egg than cheat, but I think it's cool. It's very on brand for Mortal Kombat, which has an extensive track record of secrets. Another game with some iconic cheat codes is Doom. IDDQD for God mode, IDKFA for a full loadout, IDCLIP to walk through walls. I feel like Doom was another game alongside Contra that popularized cheat codes for future games. One cheat code that is in a bunch of games and isn't inherently a cheat in the sense of that it'll give you an advantage, but is mainly just for fun, is Big Head mode. I remember it in TMNT 2008, a spectacular game by the way. Expect a whole video about that game sometime. It is so underrated, but it's probably most well known in GoldenEye 64 as DK mode in reference to Donkey Kong 64, another game developed by Rare. Honestly, a series with cheat codes more memorable to me than GTA, but I didn't want to bring it up first because I don't know how many people will relate to it, is the LEGO games. I'm pretty sure every Traveler's Tales LEGO game has cheat codes in it, and these codes range from unlocking characters before you legitimately unlock them, unlocking red brick bonuses without having to find them in the free play mode. In some games it'll unlock vehicles you can drive, and I remember searching these up with every LEGO game I played. I think in LEGO Star Wars 3 you can only unlock Savage Opress by using a cheat code. Also, I'm just realizing there's this Star Wars villain named Savage Opress. Like, really, dude? Like, really? A lot of these cheat codes, especially ones for games in the mid-2000s, could be found in magazines, online, or a method that happens to be the most nostalgic for me personally, cheat code books. Does anyone remember Cheat Code Explosion? I remember signing these books out at my local library, and most of the codes in these books were for games that I didn't own, but I was a weird kid, and I liked learning pointless information, so I still read them. But this is kind of what I meant by cheating in video games being quote-unquote badass, because these books were advertised as like, get one step ahead of the game, shows a fucking boss is boss. I think this was just sort of the Y2K aggressive, edgy attitude that the video game atmosphere carried at the time. And if you want to know more about that, I've actually got a video on PlayStation marketing during the 2000s that kind of talks about it, and I've kind of got like a dedicated video about games with the Y2K aesthetic. Such a subtle self-promo. A bigger factor of the badass energy that cheats in video games used to have are cheat devices. These go back again to the early days of video games with devices like the Game Genie for consoles like the Genesis, and kept going until I want to say about the 7th generation with things like Action Replay. From my knowledge, essentially how these worked is that they literally modified the game's code or injected specific code into the console's RAM, and these would modify certain characteristics of a game. Devices like the Game Genie or Action Replay were intended for games that didn't have cheat codes built in. These were also marketed with the intent of show that computer program who's in charge here, especially during the early days when video games were seen along the same lines as toys.
Need a new form of entertainment in your life? Join the thousands of others who have considered subscribing. Side effects may include joy, laughter, and newfound knowledge about video games. Talk to your doctor about if subscribing is right for you.
Want to support the channel? Be sure to share this video with your friends. RatedEm episodes are made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
So from what we've seen, cheating in video games used to be really cool, but nowadays, cheating in video games is so looked down upon. What happened? I think by the early 2010s, the minimalism shift that I've discussed on this channel so many times in the past pushed for everything to be online and interconnected. And this was reflected in video games as online multiplayer games began to take rise. Titanfall released on the Xbox One and 360 as a multiplayer game only, Games like Black Ops 2 and Advanced Warfare had campaigns, but they were praised more for their multiplayer modes. And then CSGO started getting really mainstream, and then Overwatch came out, and then PUBG, and then Fortnite. And now when people think of video games in general, most people think of online multiplayer games. Cheating in these games is often referred to as cheating in a competitive environment, where you're utilizing something against the rules to get an upper hand. And I think because of this prominence of online competitive gaming in today's age, the definition of cheating in video games has been covered over with whiteout and rewritten to fit the current landscape. Now it's sort of a taboo topic due to its changing definition. I think this also extends to people who use mod menus to ruin games. These aren't so much cheating in the sense of aimbots and wall hacks, but they definitely do ruin the experience for others. Vanilla GTA Online on PC is notorious for being a shitty experience because so many people have mod menus that can just summon objects or massive vehicles out of nowhere just to lag the game or make certain areas of the map impossible to navigate. I'm bringing up Black Ops 2 again. Remember when you could just go into public theater mode, watch like 3 clips from some random guy and have a whole mod menu injected into your game? That shit was publicly available. You could install a mod menu in-game and use it to teleport people around the map and summon structures made of care packages, and that was prominent for like years on end, and they did nothing about it. What was up with that? I think this worked due to theater mode clips recreating matches in-engine, so whatever data was present in someone's game would get recreated in yours. If someone had a mod menu and you watched a clip from them, it would transfer the data of the mod menu over to your game. At least, that's how I think it works. If someone wants to fact check me on that, please do, I'm interested. Regardless, cheating nowadays in games sucks. I want to make that very clear. I will never understand the hype behind having a tool to help you get good at a competitive multiplayer video game when you are perfectly capable of getting good yourself. And even if you had a reason that stopped you from being good at a competitive multiplayer video game, having it essentially play itself for you is not the way to go. You know what also sucks? Selling services for video games. I'm talking about selling Fortnite accounts because they have rare characters, or selling services to get something like Dark Matter in Call of Duty without having to actually grind out all the camo challenges. That shit is so stupid, and if you pay for this stuff, I will lose respect for you. So that explains why cheating in video games has a negative connotation today, but I want to answer the other question I asked at the start of this video. Why is the act of cheating in single-player games looked down upon today when it was once promoted amongst the community? I think this has to do with that aforementioned rewrite of what we consider cheating in video games. As I said before, we've stopped seeing cheating in video games as silly, fun cheat codes, and now are malicious acts used to ruin competitive games. But single-player games do exist, and some people do play with certain cheats enabled, or they use programs to modify the game to play how they want, or maybe they just play a certain way that causes other people to get up in arms. I'm talking about using keep inventory in Minecraft, or using summons or magic in Elden Ring. People get so pissed off about this stuff, even though these are single-player games. Why? I think that definition rewrite that turned cheats from cool to not cool and gave it a negative connotation has led people to call anything they don't agree with cheating. Anything quote-unquote negative or easy just gets slapped with the cheating label. Some people do just want to police how others play video games, which in my opinion is equally loser behavior as using aimbot or wall hacks in a multiplayer game. I know some single-player games, especially ones that pay homage to older games, have cheats built in, but they're more like rewards for collectibles or challenges. I personally think that there should be cheats in single-player games that the player can input as soon as they start the game. Who cares about how people play single player games? At the end of the day, it's a form of entertainment, and people shouldn't have to follow arbitrary laws formulated by people on the internet they'll never meet. Go play Elden Ring with a magic build and summons, unlock every character in the LEGO game with cheat codes, play Celeste with invincibility on. It's your time with the game, spend it how you want to.